Part 1. The cold that night was sharp enough to slice through skin and pride alike, and the city breathed like a restless animal, uncaring to who survived and who faded into its cracks. When Daniel Harris stepped off the bus with grocery bags cutting into his fingers and exhaustion weighing heavier than the winter air, his thoughts fixed on his daughter waiting at home, on unfinished homework and a reheated dinner, never imagining that just a few steps later a fragile voice would stop his world mid-stride, because from the dim glow of a broken street lamp emerged a woman who looked as though life had already erased her. Her body thin beneath layers of mismatched clothing, her face pale, eyes sunken yet pleading, and as she clutched her stomach and staggered forward, the words barely escaped her lips, asking if he could take her to the hospital, a request so small yet so desperate it felt like a hand closing around his heart. And before the night pulls you deeper into what happens next, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the idea that humanity still shows up when it matters most, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, subscribe to the channel for more powerful stories like this, and tell us in the comments where you are watching from, because this story belongs to every corner of the world. Daniel could have walked away, like so many others had. He could have told himself he was just a tired single dad with responsibilities already stretching him thin, but something inside him recognized the look in her eyes, a look he had once worn himself while begging doctors to save his wife years ago, and that recognition stripped away every excuse, leaving only instinct and humanity as he reached out to steady her trembling body, feeling how light she was, how fragile. And as he guided her toward his car, the city lights reflected off the windshield like blurred stars, each second stretching with urgency while his trained eyes assessed her condition without conscious effort, noting shallow breaths, cold clammy skin, and the subtle curve beneath her coat that spoke of pregnancy and danger intertwined. Daniel Harris was a man shaped by responsibility long before that night, a top trauma surgeon whose hands had saved hundreds of lives, yet outside the hospital walls he blended into anonymity, preferring silence over recognition, humility over praise, because after losing his wife to a sudden illness, titles meant little compared to the fragile miracle of coming home to his daughter every night, and as he drove through red lights with careful aggression, his mind split between father and doctor. Calculating risks, replaying protocols, praying not to arrive too late. The woman beside him, Emily Carter, drifted in and out of consciousness, her life a quiet collapse years in the making, abandoned by a partner who promised forever and vanished at the first sign of responsibility, crushed under bills, illness, and the relentless judgment of a world that measured worth by stability she no longer had, and by the time she ended up on that street corner, she had already been turned away from shelters, clinics, and strangers who saw inconvenience where a human being stood. When they reached the hospital, chaos swallowed them whole. Gurneys rolling, monitors beeping, voices overlapping, and Daniel shifted seamlessly into that controlled calm that defined his profession. Yet he did not announce himself, did not demand authority, choosing instead to let the system work while he stayed close, watching as Emily was rushed into emergency care, her condition quickly revealed as critical, severe anemia, dehydration, infection, and pregnancy complications that could have ended two lives before dawn. Hours passed in sterile waiting rooms where time lost meaning, and Daniel sat with his phone clutched in his hand, checking messages from the babysitter, guilt and fear warring inside him, yet unable to leave, because some promises are unspoken yet binding, and as dawn crept through hospital windows, Emily stabilized, her life hanging on not by luck alone but by intervention, and Daniel felt a quiet release in his chest, knowing that walking away that night would have haunted him far more than any sacrifice he had made to stay. Part 2. The days that followed were heavy with consequence, not the dramatic kind that announces itself loudly, but the subtle, life-altering kind that unfolds in paperwork, test results, and whispered conversations behind hospital curtains. And as Emily slowly regained strength, the truth of her situation emerged piece by piece, pregnant and alone, facing a future shadowed by uncertainty. While Daniel balanced rounds at the hospital with school drop-offs and bedtime stories, his daughter sensing a shift in her father, a quiet intensity mixed with compassion that made her ask gentle questions he didn't always know how to answer, yet somehow she understood more than he realized, reminding him that helping someone didn't mean losing what you already loved. Emily learned who Daniel truly was not through grand revelation but through observation, through the way staff deferred to him, the respect in their voices, and when she finally understood that the man she had begged on the street was a top doctor, shame threatened to drown her gratitude, because she believed she had taken advantage of someone she thought was just another struggling parent. But when Daniel acknowledged the truth, he did so softly, explaining that titles meant nothing outside the moments that test who we are, and that anyone could have helped if they chose to see her pain instead of her circumstances. Recovery was not linear, marked by fear, setbacks, and the crushing weight of starting over, yet Daniel refused to let her disappear into the cracks again, quietly connecting her with social workers, legal aid, and prenatal care, advocating without fanfare, because he knew that saving a life didn't end in the operating room, it continued in the choices made after survival. His daughter brought drawings to Emily's hospital room, bright colors filling sterile walls, and in those small gestures, Emily found something she hadn't felt in years, belonging, a reminder that she was more than her worst moments, more than the labels life had stamped onto her. As weeks turned into months, Emily grew stronger, her confidence slowly returning, while Daniel confronted his own buried grief, realizing that opening his life to someone else's struggle did not diminish the memory of his wife but honored it, because love does not shrink when shared, it expands. The hospital staff spoke quietly of the night that brought them together, not as gossip but as reverence, inspired by the reminder that greatness often walks unnoticed among us. When Emily was finally discharged, the sunlight spilling through the hospital doors felt like a promise she had almost stopped believing in, and though her path ahead was uncertain, she stepped into it supported, carrying hope alongside fear, knowing that one stranger's compassion had rewritten her ending. As this story draws near its close, if it has touched your heart, if it reminded you that kindness still matters and that ordinary people can become miracles to one another, please like this video, share it, and engage with it so these stories can reach others who need hope today. And just before the end, we ask you to comment below and tell us whether you believe one small act of kindness can truly change a life, because your words might be exactly what someone else needs to read right now. The night Daniel met Emily never made headlines, yet its echo lived on in healed bodies, softened hearts, and a child who learned by example that compassion is the truest legacy, proving that sometimes the most powerful medicine is simply stopping, seeing someone, and choosing not to walk away.